Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levi, your co-host, Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC 225, Robert Whittaker versus Yoel Romero. And Shaq, it's going down this Saturday in the Windy City, Chicago, Illinois. The number one guy versus the number two guy. It's not often you see that in title fights in modern-day UFC.
Yeah, that first fight was such a great fight. I mean, Rob had to come back from getting his leg messed up in the first 2 rounds and came back and won the last 3 rounds against Yoel, who is the guy that generally gets better as the fight, gets into the late stages. So that was super impressive. And I mean, the card and just itself is really good from top to bottom.
Yeah, Colby versus RDA, the people's main event.
That's the people's main event. I mean, we're going to see what's up. We're going to see if it really is Nerd Bash 2018. And, RDA gets the chance to defend his home country.
He gets the chance to also become the first Brazilian welterweight champion. And it's going to be interesting. If Colby wins, there might be a massive silence on social media. If RDA wins, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, I told you so. So it's going to be very intriguing to see what goes down with that. Obviously, we're going to talk the whole card. We got a very special guest coming up here in about 10-15 minutes. And Shaq, just a recap, for those that didn't check out our recap show, our max bet on Jody Escobar at plus 145 was canceled an hour before the event last time. And, it is what it is. Now we move on to this weekend's event, UFC 225. But, I heard the officials heard the latest episode of Half the Battle, and they knew that Aguilar had zero business in that cage, and they didn't clear her an hour before the contest, Shaq.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that she had that little weight-cutting herpes, but, they'll run it back in a few weeks, and we'll see what she really... Let's see where she wants to hide then.
Yeah, exactly. So... first up, man, let's do this whole card start to finish. And first up in the featherweight division, we got Dan Ige. He's minus 135. The comeback on Mike Santiago is plus 115. Now, both these guys had very impressive performances on Dana White Tuesday Night Contender, but then they come into the UFC, and it hasn't quite materialized. So who do you think is going to get their first UFC win?
Yeah, Ige got off to a bad start in that Arce fight, and turns out that Arce is probably one of the top prospects at 145 right now. And, the second, Arce really touched him, he pretty much shut down and got handled everywhere in every aspect of the game. Now, Santiago, he's had, we've saw him 3 times, on the Contender Series against Cherico. Cherico's really a coach. I don't think he's really, 100% in fighting. And then we got... his fight was a beat, which is, understandable. And then his fight with Mads Burnell, who's a young kid. But the thing is, Santiago's got almost 40 fights, maybe even over 40 fights. He's been a pro since he's 18. This guy's been fighting a long time, and he's losing to these young kids. Now, Ige, I think we're going to see a better version of him here. I think, it was under the bright lights, and it turns out Arce is really good, man. I like Ige in this spot. I think Santiago continuously finds himself in bad positions, and I think Ige will be able to, take his bag and edge out the rounds. I think it will go 3 rounds. I think Santiago's a better puncher, but I think Ige's stall tactics will be on point, and he'll be able to, out-position him for a decision.
Yeah, firstly, both these guys had very impressive performances on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender. Obviously, you saw Mike Santiago go out there and knock out Mark Cherico. And with Dan Ige, he beat this kid, Luis Gomez, who I'm very high on, who's a guy you got to keep your eyes out for. And, man, they both made their UFC debuts. And Mike Santiago, look, he took on Zabit. You can give him a pass for taking an L there. And then he took on Mads Burnell, who missed weight by 5 pounds. It's like, Mads cheated and he found a way to win. Now he gets the chance to take on Dan Ige, and with Ige, you saw his UFC debut against Julio Arce. Now, Arce is this great prospect, and, it was kind of even for the first 3 minutes, and then Ige got caught with one shot, and he kind of went straight into autopilot mode. He didn't know where he was, and he just got teed off on for the remainder of the fight. I don't know if that's an indicator of things to come, or that's simply credit due to Julio Arce being that good, but I didn't like that, man. At least Mike Santiago has been competitive in his UFC fight, so I think Mike Santiago actually gets it done here, man. I'm going to take him as the dog in this spot. Now, next up, also, actually, no, this is the lightweight division, because both these guys moved up. We got Charles DuBronx Oliveira. He's minus 155. The comeback on Claudia the Carpenter Guida is plus 135. Now, Guida's from Chicago. They buried him second fight of the night. Who you got in this one?
Yeah, Charles, we know the deal with Charles. He's one of the most, gifted offensive BJJ guys out there. But, the guy's a quitter. And, if you can survive his his little jiu-jitsu storm, he'll quit. And that's just facts. The Cub fight,
the Max fight,
the Cerrone fight,
Felder
Jim
fight,
Miller. The Jim Miller fight.
Cub Swanson,
Ricardo Lamas. and that's just facts. Guida's actually been submitted 9 times, and so his history on the mat is not good. So ideally, you're thinking of Charles will ever get somebody in that jiu-jitsu storm. It would be Clay Guida, but the thing is, the fight's 15 minutes long. There's no guarantee that Charles is going to be able to do that. Guida's going to know what he has to do to stay out of that. Let's see if he does. I got Guida. I like the underdog in the spot, especially against a quitter like Charles. But, can you rely on a guy that's been sub 9 times? We saw that Thiago Tavares fight. We saw the Dennis Bermudez fight. But I like Guida here. I think at some point he will land a jab overhand right, and I think Charles will just take a knee and quit. In the second round, I think Charles ain't made for those late rounds.
Man, that Felder fight, that was... it's funny because every time he fights, I say, man, that's one of the biggest quit jobs I've ever seen, like the Max Holloway fight.
You say that quite a bit.
And then I say that about the Felder fight too, and then I say that about the Cub Swanson fight. I'm like, man, this guy keeps topping himself every single time he goes out there. And Clay Guida is definitely, he's known for stifling jiu-jitsu guys. I mean, that's one of the things that people used to hype him up for. I mean, I know you remember when he beat Rafael dos Anjos via submission. So, he also beat Anthony Pettis. He also beat Nathan Diaz. My boy Clay Guida's got a resume on him. But one thing you mentioned, Shaq, is he's been submitted 9 times. And if there's anyone that, you could say is a master of offensive submissions, because there's no defense submissions, right? But look, if there's someone that is really good at finishing fights with subs, it's definitely Charles Oliveira. So the story, anytime Charles fights, it's sub or bust. So you got to pick one. Is it sub or is it going to be bust? I mean, on his best day, he can finish Darren Elkins. On his best day, he can win a decision against Jeremy Stevens. He can finish Miles Jury. He can do all these things. But on his worst day, I mean, he'll headline a card against Max Holloway, first body shot. He'll be like, my esophagus hurts. And then 2 days later, they say he's completely fine. So I really don't know. I could see this going down like the Thiago Tavares fight where Clay Guida shoots in head first and gets caught with a guillotine. So I'm going to go with sub. I think Charles DuBronx gets him out of there. But if this hits the scorecards, if Charles does not get a sub, Guida will break him. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got Joseph Benavidez. He's minus 260. The comeback on Sergio Pettis is plus 220. Now, man, my boy Sergio really let me down his last fight. But, it's interesting because, his teammate Chico Camus stuffed the takedowns better against Cejudo than Sergio did. But, we thought Cejudo was going to come out with that karate stance that he fought with Hayes, and he wanted none of that. He wanted to hump the leg. Props to him. He got the decision win. Now Sergio's taking on Joseph. Who you got?
Yeah, it turns like the Pettis bros are like the Diaz bros. How the Diaz bros don't check low kicks? The Pettis bros can be tied up and wrestled, man. So
Pettis bros don't stuff takedowns?
The Pettis bros don't stuff takedowns. But, Benavidez is a long layoff coming off that ACL. Towards the end of his little run, like his fights with Moraga, Ali, Makowski, I did notice a little bit of a decline, but at the end of the day, the guy was still getting his hand raised decisively. So, I mean, the guy's 25-4. He's only lost to 2 people. Arguably the greatest fight. What they say is the greatest fighter on planet.
Let them know who those 2 people are.
My boy Dominic Cruz, the greatest bantamweight of all time, and then the greatest flyweight of all time. So, Benavidez has had a great career, man. I'm not sure if Pettis is ready to stuff these takedowns. I think Benavidez is coming to wrestle. Benavidez is a good weasel. I think Sergio has an advantage out in space, but we know Benavidez ain't looking to do that here. Yeah, I think there's value on Serge to see if he can stuff the takedown, but there's no guarantee because he's been taken down by Moraga. He's been taken down by Carriazo. He's been taken down by Moreno multiple times, you know what I'm saying? And we know that Joseph Benavidez is very efficient at stealing rounds at the end of the rounds, you know what I'm saying? He's a very smart fighter. He's 25-4. So for those reasons, I got to go with Joseph Benavidez by 29-28 decision. I think, it'll be 1-1 going into the third round, but Sergio will just get out positioned slightly.
My boy Joseph Benavidez isn't just a winner inside that octagon. He's a winner in life. I mean, the dude, firstly, his only losses are to Demetrius Johnson and Dominic Cruz. He's got one of the best MMA resumes we've ever seen. He's got a pretty damn hot wife. The dude's just winning at life. So much respect to my boy Joseph Benavidez. And Sergio Pettis, look, this fight stays standing. If he can somehow keep this on the feet, he'll beat Joseph Benavidez. He's a much better striker. He's got cleaner counters, and Sergio's got one of the best point fighting games in the biz, but the issue here is, do we have any proof that Sergio can get up off his back? Any whatsoever. Someone here listening, let me know. Do we have any proof that Sergio can get up off his back if he is taken down? Because when he gets taken down, he's been taken down his last 4 fights, by the way, Shaq. He doesn't seem to get back up, man, and it's super frustrating because the kid's so fucking good standing. It's like, man, if you could just fix that one part of your game.
Sounds like his big bro.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to talk about...
His big bro, like a few years ago.
His big bro, pre-USADA? Yeah. But look, man, if my boy Sergio could just get that one part of his game down, he could be a fucking world beater. But, he's got that flaw, and certain people have certain flaws. Alistair Overeem can't take a punch. Sergio Pettis can't stuff a takedown. So it is what it is, man.
Sarah McMahon can't win a fight in the second round.
Sarah McMahon can't help herself but not quit if a fight goes past the first. So I really, it just comes down to is Joseph going to wrestle him or not? Joseph wrestles, he wins this fight. If Joseph tries to test the stand-up, I think he gets picked apart. So, I think the price is right. I think the value's on the dog, but Serge probably can't get up from takedowns, so Serge is probably going to lose a decision. But if my boy Serge keeps it standing, he'll definitely pick apart Joseph. It's just there's no guarantee that he does that.
Yeah.
It's a question mark. It's like a coin flip. So I'm going to go with Benavidez. Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got Anthony Lionheart-Smith. He's minus 310. The comeback on Sugar Rashad Evans is plus 255. Now, it's pretty funny seeing that red arrow next to Rashad Evans' number because action has been coming in on my boy Sugar. And, man, it's just sad at this point. Much respect to Sugar. Love that guy. Beat Chuck Liddell, beat Bisbing, beat Forrest, beat Rampage, did all these things, beat Thiago Silva. The guy's the man. Phil Davis, Chael Sonnen. What a resume. But, when it's over, Shaq.
My boy Rashad, man, my boy Rashad is a legend, man. He's done everything in his career. And, back in the days when he had the mansion and, when he was champ, Rashad was the man. He still is the man. But, man, it's time to hang him up, man. His hoorah was that Bader fight. Everyone go back and watch that promo to the Bader fight. I mean, Bader was saying it, how long ago? 3-4 years ago? He was like, Rashad's got a foot out the door. He wants to work at Fox Sports. You know what I'm saying? He's showing up for a paycheck. And, I mean, guys, go look at Rashad Evans' show money. I think he's a legend, but I mean, he's losing decisions to Sam Alvey. What happened that Bader fight? He got completely destroyed. I mean, Bader outclassed him in every aspect of the game, took him down even. Then the Glover fight. Then you get out-hustled by a 41-year-old on one leg. And then we saw his last fight with Alvey. So, man, I just think it's consistent decline. I don't think the guy has any confidence in himself. I think he's having an inner battle with himself. Now, Anthony Smith, he's a guy that's moving up 15 pounds in this fight. Anthony Smith, He gets better as the fight goes on. He has been taken down a lot. And, that's against guys that are, in my opinion, just operating at a different frequency. Even though those guys don't have the name as Rashad, those guys are actually out there, athletic. Even though Andrew Sanchez is a jobber, he's still athletically, a real fighter. Rashad isn't capable of that.
All I got to say is my Heta and Mutanchi would smoke Rashad too.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just those guys are operating at a very different frequency right now. So I'm going to take Anthony Smith, whether it's an early stoppage, if he just crushes him, or even if Rashad does show up a little bit. I just don't think Rashad can escape 15 minutes without getting cracked on the chin by this guy. I think the 20 pounds is going to get him off to a better start, and I think Anthony Smith knocks him out. So
it's pretty funny. Just go watch the promo of the Rashad and Glover fight, because Rashad basically lays it out for you exactly what we're thinking. He says, Glover thinks I'm washed up. Glover thinks I don't have it anymore. Glover thinks I'm this and that. It's like, bro. And then he gets knocked out in under 2 minutes. It's like Glover was right. So now, fast forward 4 more losses since that point. It's like, Rashad, man. I watched the interview with him, and he says, he's fighting for a different reason. He has a different why now, and we know exactly what that why is. That why used to be the UFC world title. That why now is that $150K paycheck. That child support ain't cheap, Shaq. When you got 3 baby mamas, the shit ain't cheap. So shout out to my boy Rashad, still putting food on the table for his family, $150K to show. I hope he doesn't get seriously hurt, but unfortunately for him, Anthony Smith is a slow starter, but once he starts to find his range, man, he's super long for the weight class. He was super long at middleweight. He's going to be super long at light heavyweight as well. The knees, the elbows, the tie clinch, the straight punches, man, the head kicks. He's going to fuck Rashad up. So Rashad needs to not get caught for 3 straight rounds to win this fight. I don't see that happening. I see Rashad going down. I got Anthony Smith via knockout. And Shaq, we got to call up our very special guest. And joining us now, this is a man that's had 20 professional fights and won 17 of them. He holds the record for the fastest submission in featherweight history, record for the fastest consecutive wins in UFC history, and he's on the cusp of breaking the record for the most submissions in featherweight history. I'm talking about UFC featherweight Chaz the Scrapper Skelly. Chaz, welcome back to Half the Battle.
What's up, man? Thanks a lot. Good to be here.
Man, it's great to have you back on. So, first up, man, we got this heavyweight matchup between Rashad Coulter. He's minus 185. The comeback on Chris De La Roca is plus 160. Now, it's interesting because when I first saw this fight on paper, I was like, man, why are they opening the televised prelims with it? But then you watch the tape, you understand why. It's going to be one of those fun, sloppy, heavyweight affairs. Both these guys need their first UFC win really badly. Who are you going with in this matchup, Chaz?
To be honest with you, I'm going to go with Chris De La Rocha. I just feel like he has the crucible combinations on his feet, to be honest. I feel like he moves from the body to the head really well. And he also has pretty decent takedowns, actually, for a heavyweight. If you look at if you look at some of his past fights, he he is able to get people to the ground. He's actually able to ride people on top. And I don't think that Rashad really has much in the way of takedown defense, and I also have noticed that Rashad gasses pretty hard, and that's without wrestling exchanges. I mean, he gassed pretty hard in his first two UFC fights, and they were all striking, and he's a striker. So once you throw wrestling in the mix, I feel like he gets grinded out a little bit. He gasses out, and then he starts getting tagged.
Well, Shaq, look, someone's always got to go, just like the CM Punk fight. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the win column. Someone's got to get their first UFC win. You think it's going to be Rashad Coulter or Chris De La Roca?
Yeah, I think he made some good points. I think, Rashad's best bet is to land a big overhand right and just hope that De La Roca goes down. But I think what separates him is the toughness. I just think De La Roca's tougher, and I think he's a little more willing to do more things to get the win. You know what I'm saying? And his Mirsad fight, even though he's getting cracked at times where, in cases maybe Coulter would just shy away and, and take the L, De La Roca was coming back and still trying to fight. I think he's just a little tougher. But, Coulter could land the one punch, but I like De La Roca. I think he makes him break.
I actually thought this fight should have been closer to a pick'em. I don't know how you can have that much confidence in Rashad Coulter as a minus 185 favorite. And not to mention, I actually thought he looked better in his UFC debut against Chase Sherman than he did in his sophomore appearance against Tai Tuivasa. He had a lot more fight in him in that first one. It might have taken its toll. He got his first $50K bonus. He's never experienced anything like that in his life. He came back. He wasn't, it didn't look that good. And with Chris De La Roca, it was the opposite. He actually looked like shit that debut. Came back that second appearance. I thought it was an early stoppage against Adam Mirsad. I think you guys make good points about how he strings his combinations together, so I'm going to agree. I'm going to go with Chris De La Roca for the upset. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got Mirsad Bektic. He's minus 250. The comeback on Ricardo Lamas is plus 210. Now, Shaq, this is a very intriguing matchup, man. Mirsad Bektic, officially, he's only lost one UFC fight, but between you and me, we actually are on the line with the other guy that he got knocked out by. But that being said, man, who you got in this matchup?
Yeah, Mirsad, I think, a lot of people are saying that he's never faced this level of competition, but I just think that's because of the name. We hear the name Ricardo Lamas and, we think a top 5 guy, perennial top 5 guy, and he has been for the majority of his career, but I don't think he's performing like that lately. His fight with Diego Sanchez, they were kind of going back and forth those first 2 rounds besides the calf kicks. And then, Mirsad, I think he's fought at some high levels. I think the fight with him and Chaz for a debut, that was a high-level fight for 2 guys that were both making their debut. And, that fight went everywhere, man. That type of fight, get you a lot of experience. So I think Mirsad's very well prepared for this fight. He's training at TriStar now. At ATT, I feel like he kind of didn't really have any structure. He was shooting takedowns unnecessarily and, getting himself into trouble in the Elkins fight. And he was still out-muscling Elkins in that 3rd round. So I think he's going to have his best performance here. I think at TriStar he's going to be a lot more patient, actually have a real game plan. And we know the deal with Lamas. He's been knocked out, 3-4 times? So I think, eventually a home for that straight right, left hook will land, but I think if he wants to wrestle with Lamas, he can as well.
Chaz, you made your UFC debut against Mirsad Bektic, and it was actually before the rule change. Between you and me, we know you knocked him out. Anyone that's listening to Half the Battle knows we talk about that every time we break down a Mirsad fight, and even Mike Goldberg was like, it's all over. But, back then you could play the whole playing the game thing. So what's your opinion on this matchup now that he gets to step up against Ricardo Lamas?
To be honest with you, I feel like Mirsad has really cleaned a lot of things up in his game since then. I feel like here's my only thing with Mirsad that I think he's a world beater. I think he's got great cardio. I think he's got great boxing, and he has. In our fight, I really underestimated his wrestling, and I didn't realize how good of a wrestler he was. He has outstanding wrestling. He doesn't like to get hit, and you can see it in his face when he gets hit. You can see it in his face in his fight. And that's the reason that he shoots for takedowns unnecessarily. And in the last fight that you saw him on a TriStar, he didn't have to shoot for any unnecessary shots. He never got hit. I think that Ricardo Lamas is going to hit him. And I think that he is going to shoot some unnecessary takedowns. But I also think that he's going to get a couple of those takedowns. And when he gets on top, I don't think Lamas is going to be able to get up from the bottom. I do think it's going to be a decision. I do think it's going to be a close fight, but I think Mirsad's going to squeak it out with those takedowns. But I do think he's going to start looking for the takedowns early after he gets hit. Just watch. I promise you, as soon as he gets hit by Lamas, he starts shooting takedowns as soon as he gets hit. But I still think he gets the takedowns. I still think he wins the decision.
Man, it's going to be interesting because, look, Mirsad said if the Elkins fight never happened, he would have never ended up at TriStar. And now, he felt like at ATT, he had a 5-year contract. He was kind of riding it out. He feels like being under, Faraz and GSP is the best thing that ever happened to him. I don't know if you see how these guys at TriStar have been looking lately, but their dietary supplement plan has been working out very well. Now you got a guy like Mirsad on that, and I think the sky could be the limit for a kid like that because, one of the themes we've been talking about is how he shoots all those unnecessary takedowns, but now you got GSP and Faraz guiding you the right way and letting you know, hey, kid, you're doing perfectly fine on the feet. Just shoot the takedown at the end of the round, steal it. I think he's going to get a lot more confidence. You saw his fight with Pepe. I know it's Pepe, but still, he didn't shoot any takedowns in that fight. He stayed a lot calmer than he was in the Elkins fight, and we also got to take into consideration he's only 26, 27 years old. He's just a kid. So I expect a guy like that to make huge improvements every single time out. And Ricardo Lamas, obviously he's a badass. He's been a perennial top 5 guy for like the last 5-10 years. The calf kicks are on point. Very well-rounded guy. I feel like on the feet, he's more of a flashy guy. Throws a lot of spinning techniques. And he's a very opportunistic finisher. Like you shoot in with your head on the outside, he's going to snatch that guillotine. It just comes down to Mirsad basically not getting caught. If Mirsad doesn't get caught, I think he wins this fight. So it opened minus 175. I thought that was a bit low. I think this minus 250 is a little bit more accurate. So I got Mirsad Bektic for the win. Now next up in the women's strawweight division, we got Claudia Gadelha. She's minus 600. The comeback on Carla Esparza is plus 450. Now, Chaz, it's interesting, man, because I actually thought it was going to be lined a little bit closer. I'm not used to seeing a plus 450 next to Carla Esparza's name. You have an opinion on this one?
Yeah, women's fights are always hard to judge. I think it's a trap bet. I say don't fall for it. I think Gadelha is just a little too strong. She's a little too physical, and I think she gets the job done. I really don't. I think Esparza has a little more polished wrestling, but I think Gadelha's got a little better striking. I think she's a lot stronger, a lot more physical. I see her winning a decision, and I think it's a trap bet.
Shaq, it's interesting because Claudia Gadelha, the one thing she's been criticized for in the past is she comes out super hard that first round, sometimes gasses out in the second and third. You think if that were the case here, that Carla could capitalize and get takedowns in the second and third round?
Yeah, I think Gadelha's had the same flaw since day one, and I don't think she's really fixed it, man. I think she always does that. In her fight with Andrade, she just attributed it to that Andrade is like this as strong as a 125-pound guy, but the real issue was that she blew her gas tank again. So I agree with Chaz, though. I just think she's going to be a little bit too physical. I think Esparza, is a tough girl, but I just think physically she's super outmatched here. I think when they tie up, I just think it's going to be a difference. I think Claudia will be able to just, not edge out a decision, but just go 3 rounds at her own pace. I think to really beat her, you got to make her fight to a point where she empties out that gas tank.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we often forget about Claudia, she's actually a pretty high-level black belt in jiu-jitsu, man. She's no slouch at all. And with Carla, we have seen her get in bad spots in the past. I know you remember that plus 240 dog cash on Randa Marcos, and Randa had her in a crucifix, was landing huge elbows on her. So, Claudia, she's the more physical fighter, like both you guys mentioned. She's the better fighter. She's the rightful favorite. I think plus 450 is a bit of a stretch, but you make a good point, Chaz. It might be a trap fight, and, there's no value in a losing bet. So, yeah, I'm probably going to go with the favorite here as well. Now, next up in the heavyweight division, we got Curtis Blaydes. He's minus 170. The comeback on Alistair Overeem is plus 150. Now, Shaq, it's interesting because Curtis Blaydes, he's moving his way up that ladder really, really quickly. I mean, he's fighting the Omolanchuks, then he fights the Mark Hunts. Now he's fighting the Alistair Overeems. He gets this win. He's a top 5 guy. And Overeem, we saw what happened in his last fight with Ngannou, but he's been knocked out 100 times, so he's always came back and won his next fight. So you think he comes back and wins this one too?
Man, Curtis Blaydes, I'm really high on this guy. I liked his performance against Mark Hunt. I think people say he's got a bad chin. I think he's got a really good chin. Now, I know he's been dropped by Cody East twice. I know he's been dropped by Mark Hunt. What else did he get? He ate the Francis Ngannou shots completely fine, though. He's only the few people that actually stayed conscious during that. So, I think his wrestling's as good as it gets in the heavyweight division. The thing with Alistair Overeem, his takedown defense is super on point. And we know if you're shooting, telegraph shots against Overeem, you could be eating a knee, coming in. So, do I have the utmost confidence that Curtis can strike with Overeem? But at the same time, how many times has Overeem been knocked out? We just saw the last one. So I could see Curtis Blaydes, faking low, coming up high and catching him with the shot. So I am going to take Curtis Blaydes in this fight. But, it wouldn't shock me if Overeem pulled this off. I'm not sure if Curtis is ready for this yet. But Overeem, man, the way he looked against Francis was kind of alarming, man. He kind of showed up like super scared, man, and I just think it's Blaydes' time now.
Chaz, it's interesting, man, because with these heavyweights, it seems like they got 9 lives, and, they get brutally knocked out, you count them out, then they come back and they win their very next fight. And with Blaydes, it's interesting because he's one of the only heavyweights on the roster that's still in his 20s. He's just a kid. So, if he took a setback here, he could for sure bounce back. It's a must-win for Overeem. Which way are you leaning?
Okay. So I watched all the film on this. This is a fight that I was really interested in because I'm also super high on Blaydes. I really like the guy's style. I like him as a person. I think he's a super solid dude. The MO on Overeem has always been his work ethic. Has always been that he's pretty lazy. He's always been a super great athlete, a really great striker. He has a good ground game, but his work ethic has always been a problem in his camps. I've heard it from multiple people who have worked with him. Well, so you've seen him come out hard and gas hard in fights, like Travis Brown. He had him hurt. He went for the finish real hard, and then he seemed just unbearably tired after that. Well, in my opinion, I've got Blaydes. I've got Blaydes winning it probably by 3rd round TKO. I think what's going to happen is Blaydes is going to come out and he has to keep the pressure on him. He has to make him wrestle. He has to keep the pressure on him, and he has to change the pace of the fight because Overeem comes out, watches past fights, watches fight against, say, Verdum, for instance. Verdum didn't make him change the pace of the fight. Overeem can go at that really slow striking pace for 5 rounds if he has to. And even in that fight, he gassed out in the 3rd round. Overeem started catching him with punches, caught him with the knee, and dominated in the 3rd round. And that was a very slow-paced fight, and he still got tired going into the 3rd. I think Blaydes possibly gets caught in the 1st, fight battles back, doesn't get knocked out, Overeem exerts a little bit of energy, Blaydes continues to grind, and I think Overeem gasses out so hard that Blaydes finishes him in the 3rd.
Yeah, I can see it. You remember what happened that 3rd round of the Verdum fight. Oh, the Bigfoot fight as well, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not
He's known for doing that.
The thing with Blaydes, man, he's getting better every single fight, and he's got a fucking steel chin. You saw that fight with Mark Hunt. When guys get hit with that shot, they don't often just pop back up like it was nothing. Not only did he pop back up, he ended up taking him down a million times and winning the fight in Australia. So Curtis Blaydes, and that's the kind of performance there. When you beat a guy like Mark Hunt, that's got to increase your confidence and let you know that, hey, I do belong at this level. And Overeem, super inconsistent. When he wins fights, he looks like a world beater, but when he gets touched on that chin, man, it's good night, Irene. So, I got to lean with Blaydes here just because, where's Overeem's mindset at? Because, there's only so many times you can make that climb over and over and over again, and I really feel like the Ngannou fight might have been that nail in the coffin, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't be surprised if Blaydes went out there and knocked him out, but at the same time, he can also use his wrestling and seal the fight off that way. So I think he's got more ways to win. It comes down to, something that we've talked about in some of the other past fights, which is just don't get caught and you win this fight. So I got Curtis Blaydes as well.
Say something else, too. With that, with what Shaq was saying, that was my biggest fear in this fight is if you watch the film, because I bet on Blaydes, I put money on Blaydes. My biggest fear in this fight, though, is the way the Blaydes shoots. He kind of goes for those last doubles, and he keeps it really extends his arms, and then he comes up with the clinch. Overeem throws incredible knees from the clinch, at the face, but mostly at the body, and that's scary. Think about a wrestler coming in the way that Blaydes does, because Overeem's knees are incredible in short space. He creates a lot of energy in a very short knee, so that's my biggest fear in this fight. But yeah, sorry,
No, I think it's a great point. we saw the Brock Lesnar fight. That was the last time he fought a super high caliber wrestler, and the knees were very on point. But that was also a different era of the sport. He was getting his horse meat sent personally from the Netherlands. You know what I'm saying? So. Yeah, I think times have changed, but, obviously you guys bring up great points because, the technique is still there for that knee. So, we'll see if he's able to pull that off. Now, kicking off the pay-per-view, now we got an amateur fight. between Mike Jackson, he's minus 225. The comeback on CM Punk is plus 185. Now, Shaq, it's interesting because CM Punk actually lasted longer with Mickey Gall than Mike Jackson did. Now, I watched some of Mike Jackson's regional fights. My boy Jeremy Holloway gave him a tour of the cage on the regional scene. He's actually been inside a cage before, and I'm not just talking about...
He was on Fightville.
Yeah, he's actually been in real fights before, whereas CM Punk has only been inside the octagon that one time. But that being said, man, I don't think the UFC has any benefit with Mike Jackson winning this fight. You think the ref's going to be wearing an earpiece and let Mike Jackson know when to go down?
My theory on this fight has always been, why would you want Mike Jackson to win a UFC fight? What are you going to do with him moving forward? With CM Punk, you can keep the charade going a little longer. So I think CM Punk's going to win. I'm not saying the fight's fixed, but the fight's fixed. So, I think Mike Jackson's going to come out here, probably catch him with a punch, but then flop to his back and get choked out or something. But if it's a real fight, I honestly have no clue. CM Punk, the stories I've been hearing aren't so good. But I haven't been hearing good things about Mike Jackson either. So I'm gonna take CM Punk with that underdog.
This is what I heard from some of CM Punk's teammates as far as the game plan is concerned. Because, last time he just charged at Mickey Gall recklessly, got taken down right away, which, is interesting. Obviously, you take a win by any means necessary. I thought Mickey Gall could have played with him a little bit, taught him a lesson. But Mickey Gall just
scared.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. But, all that being said, I hear that CM Punk's going to try to be a little bit more relaxed in this one, kind of circle a little bit, and then try to close the distance and try to get him down on the mat. We don't know what Mike Jackson's takedown defense is like. We don't know what CM Punk's entries are like. Just based on who each guy is and based on who's the pay-per-view seller, I'm going to pick CM Punk, but come on now. Chaz, who you got, man?
I'm just going to pass on this.
Okay.
I don't have a technical breakdown.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. So, next up in the heavyweight division, and this is going to be interesting, we got Tai Tuivasa. He's minus 235. The comeback on Andrei Arlovski is plus 195. Now, Chaz, the last three guys that fought Andrei Arlovski, man, it's funny because he was coming off a 5-fight losing streak, but the last three guys have all kind of fanboyed out for Arlovski. They're all asking him for autographs in the middle of their fights. I know you saw the Tibura fight. I know you saw the Junior Albini fight, the Stefan Struve fight. I'm like, man, what the fuck is going on? But that being said, Tai Tuivasa, he's a Western Sydney boy. If you know anything about those Western Sydney guys, they don't know who the hell you are. They don't give a shit. He's coming to throw. I don't think he's going to be scared of Arlovski. But that being said, man, do you think it's enough to get the win here?
Honestly, I purposely have skipped this fight as far as giving it any attention or watching the video at all. And the reason is because I don't want to bet it. I don't want to be tempted to bet it. I feel like that Arlovski can be one of those guys that he can be so technical. And from what I've seen from I don't know how to say his last name, Tuivasa, is that how you say it?
Yeah, Tuivasa.
Tuivasa. What I've seen from him is he's one of those dudes. He's a big athletic guy, and he can come out and he can really flatten anybody, and I do believe that's probably what's going to happen here. We've all seen that Arlovski's chin is so diminished that really if you put any kind of leather on it, he's going down. But we've also seen that Arlovski can be a smart game planner. He knows where he's at right now in his career. He knows that he has to throw jabs out there. He knows that he has to move, and he knows that he can't get in those barn burner exchanges anymore because he just doesn't have the chin to do it. So I think that Arlovski is going to come out and try and make it a really, really boring affair. But that being said, I think that Tuivasa's gonna flatten him. I think he's gonna come out and really just get in his face. He's probably gonna feel him out, get in his face, throw something heavy, and catch him. I can see that pretty easily.
Well, Shaq, you've seen Andrei Arlovski be able to go out there and do the Greg Jackson game plan against his last three opponents, but now it's a different task here with Tai Tuivasa. Who you got?
Yeah, Arlovski's, he's attributed his new success to his new striking coach, Paulino, who's actually the striking coach at Covington. So, he's got that new camp change. But if we're thinking Arlovski's back, I think everyone needs to calm down a little bit. But, Tuivasa, I like what I've seen from him. The thing is, it's against two complete jobbers, Rashad, Coulter, and Cyril Asker. It's pretty much a case of assumption. I can assume that he's the real deal and that he's going to come out and smoke Arlovski. But I haven't seen him. What happens when things get tough in there?
You have on the regional scene, though.
On the regional scene, we saw him against Peter Graham, and Peter Graham made him quit. So, but he was a lot heavier then, and he was a kid. But, hey, it happened, you know what I'm saying? So, it's tough to say because Arlovski, he's got that volume boxing point style now. He's trying to be a point fighter now, and it's super safe. And he's getting these kids like Junior, these kids like Tybor, these
Struve's under 30.
Yeah, Struve's under 30. So Tuivasa, man, I think he will win, but it's really just an assumption. I'm just assuming that he is going to show up because his idol ain't Andrei Arlovski. His idol's Mark Hunt. So I don't think he has any fanboyism over Andrei. I think he actually does come out here and get the job done.
Yeah, you mentioned how his idol is Mark Hunt, and he tries to mimic his game plan around that Mark Hunt style. He's short and stocky for the weight class, very explosive, loves to leap in with that left hook. And one thing I really like about him is that when he gets close, in close quarters, he's obviously he mixes it up to the body, but he's very good at separating that clinch. His clinch breaks are very, very on point. He knows how to close that distance, get in, get out. And I think the speed could be a huge weapon here against a guy like Arlovski. And obviously you mentioned the level of competition he's been facing, obviously Rashad, Coulter, and the French guy, but he handled them exactly how you're supposed to. He fucked them both up. But sometimes he does some young mistakes. He goes for those lateral drops. I'm like, what are you doing, man? And he ends up on his back. I'm like, come on, just keep it standing, kid. But that being said, if he does the right thing here, because I do think he's paid his dues on the regional scene. He's already taken his first L. He's also taken a couple L's in kickboxing, so he knows what it's like to not always dominate every single fight. I think that's very important for a young fighter. So I actually see him coming out here. I think it's going to be a left hook KO. Now, next up in the women's bantamweight division, we got Holly Holm. She's minus 235. The comeback on Megan Anderson is plus 195. Shaq, were you kind of surprised to see a minus 235 next to Holly Holm? She is a 500 fighter inside the UFC's octagon.
Well, I noticed it did open a little lower, but, I like Holly. I respect her as a fighter. I think she's had a great career, former champion. But when I really look at things, I put her in that same category as, a Marina Moroz or a Kaylin Shukagian. You know what I'm saying? She moves like an elite fighter, but I don't think she really inflicts damage like an elite fighter. I think she has her movement and all, but I don't think she's really landing anything. I think she's just making a bunch of sounds, and I don't think she's really going to blow out anyone unless she can land like one big head kick. Now, I understand Megan Anderson's coming from a long layoff in a different promotion. She's super green. She's been fighting a bunch of soccer moms over there, like Peggy Morgan and whatnot. But, I think she's got potential. She is 6 foot tall. I mean, she's huge.
6'1".
6'1". She's bigger than Holly, in my opinion. You give her a year to improve. Who knows how she's going to show up this time. And we're talking about Holly Holm, who continuously fights close with everyone she fights. Now, I know she knocked out Betch Correa, but that fight was close up until that point. I think her boxing for MMA is a little overrated, to be honest. I think I've seen chicks outbox her several times. I think if Megan is a little too green, then Holly will scrape it out. But I actually think this fight should be lying closer. I don't see Holly Holm dominating anyone these days. You know what I'm saying? I think she's had a great career, but she is, getting up there in age. She did go 5 rounds with Cyborg, but she took 5 rounds of Cyborg damage. You know what I'm saying? She took 5 rounds of Durandamy damage. You know what I'm saying? I think she's gonna start operating at a lower and lower frequency. So I'm actually taking Megan for the upset.
Chaz, it's interesting, man. We haven't seen Megan inside the UFC's octagon, but, she's actually a legit 145-pound fighter. Holly Holm, we've seen at bantamweight before. What's your opinion on this one?
Yeah, she's a big girl, man. Like, she, from what I saw, she walks around 175 or so. And she's cut, too. I mean, she's big, she's muscular, she looks strong. I mean, but Holly's jacked too, though. So she's super strong. To be honest with you, I can see Holly dancing around a lot, using a lot of footwork and pointing it out. I see. I think. I hate to say it because actually I'd love to see it go the other way. Honestly, I really would. I just see Holly being a little quicker, having a little better footwork, and really just using that footwork and throwing, throwing a lot of kicks out there, throwing a lot, some tees, keeping her away from her a little bit, throwing some body kicks, and then keeping her jab working and kind of pointing it out, not really even looking for the finish. I see it kind of being an uneventful decision for Holly.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, when she does win fights, minus the head kicks against Ronda and Betcha, that's typically how it goes down. You know, I feel like in another life, Holly Holm would have been a pro tennis player with the sounds that she makes, you know what I'm saying? But as far as this matchup is concerned, with her going up to 145 pounds, we've seen the 2 times she did inside the UFC's octagon. It didn't go her way, man, and she was getting rocked badly in both those fights. Granted, it was against Cyborg and Durand and me. Megan Anderson's definitely a step down in competition. But look, Megan Anderson was only 28 years old, taking this year off. She's probably improved a lot. Everyone is super confident that Holly Holm's going to come out here and make a statement. And sometimes when they zig, I got to zag. I'm going to go the opposite way. We'll see. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Who gives a shit? But I'm going to go with Megan Anderson for the upset. We'll see what happens, though. Now, next up, the co-main event of the evening. This is going to be really good. We got Colby Covington. He's minus 130. The comeback on Rafael dos Anjos is plus 110. Now, Chaz, what are you thinking, man? Because obviously RDA, he's coming up from lightweight, but he's won his first 3 fights at welterweight. Now he's fighting for a title again. If he wins this fight, he'll become the first ever Brazilian UFC welterweight champion. But for Colby, minus the Warlley Alves fight, I don't believe he's even lost a round in the UFC.
Yeah, but, man, his striking sucks. His striking does suck. And, you know, his wrestling is good. Dos Anjos is a top-side jiu-jitsu guy. We all know that. Dos Anjos applies great pressure. He has crisp striking. Outside of him getting caught, you know, in that Eddie Alvarez fight, you know, he looks to have a solid chin. Man, maybe this is just me hoping, but I think Dos Anjos is going to put him away. Dude, Colby Covington's striking sucks. He looks awkward out there. He doesn't throw crisp punches. I mean, his face looked a little beat up after the Damian Maia fight even, and Damian Maia throws punches like a schoolgirl. So, you know, I don't know. I think Dos Anjos does it. I think Dos Anjos puts sweet justice for the Brazilian fans. Dos Anjos puts him away in the 3rd round.
You thinking a submission or a TKO?
TKO.
So, man, it's interesting because I know Colby gets a lot of heat for the first round of the Maia fight, but, you know, when you're fighting a guy like Damian Maia and you're a wrestler, you know, you're not going to go in there and shoot on a guy like Damian Maia because obviously you don't want to tie up with a guy like that. You see what happens. I mean, unless you're Jake Shields, who's the American Damian Maia. He was the original Damian Maia. He's got a better resume than Damian Maia. So unless you're Jake Shields, you don't go in there and tie up with a guy like Maia. You try to keep the fight standing and pick him apart, or kind of run away like T Wood did and land some shots. But at least Colby beat his ass. Now, I agree with you as far as the boxing is concerned. Colby's boxing does need a little work. His kicks are definitely better than his punches. Actually, if you've seen some of his past fights, he does have I don't want to sit here and say he's got some flashy kicks, but he definitely kicks way better than he punches. I will say that, but obviously the end goal is the wrestling. And we've seen RDA get grinded in the past. I'm not just talking about the Khabib fight. What about the Gleison Tebow fight? And even back in the day when he first started in the UFC. But since that point, obviously he's gotten a lot better. And also in the Khabib fight, he did show that, you know, he can attack for guillotines, and, you know, Colby's been caught in one of those in the past. But man, he's just too small for Colby Covington, I feel like. And
yeah, size is huge.
And I feel like if this fight goes the 5-round distance, I don't see how RDA can win a decision. He's got to have a sprawl and brawl clinic for him to win a decision in this spot, and I just don't see that happening. I see him getting taken down over and over again. Now, if somewhere along the way he's able to find a guillotine, he's able to, you know, maybe keep the fight standing at one point in the 3rd or 4th round, land some shots and accumulate and potentially get Colby out of there, I see that as his only path to victory. I see him only winning this fight via finish, but I'm going to have to go with Colby Covington via the grind, man. I think he's too big for RDA. I think that his cardio is insane. The wrestling's on point. I think he's going to win a 5-round decision, Shaq.
Yeah, you know, I think when Colby first came into the UFC, he was one of the most hyped guys that came in, you know, in a while. But then when he lost to Warlley, you know, people kind of wrote him off as just, you know, a boring wrestler. And, you know, people can think whatever they want. And, you know, his fight with Maia, I think the threat of his offensive takedown ability wasn't available in that fight, so he had to strike 3 rounds. You know what I'm saying? So I think in all his other fights, the reason why he didn't lose a round is because he would just get on top of guys and smash them and make them quit. We saw what he did to, a good puncher like Max Griffin, who did just beat Mike Perry, who's got big power in his hands. He avoided the power. Pretty much the same scenario in all his fights. Avoid the power and take this guy down. I think the takedown is going to be here, but I think he's got to watch his neck. I mean, he constantly leaves his neck in submissions. The Mike Powell fight in the third round, he almost got choked out. The Barberena fight in the third round, he almost got choked out. He did get choked out against Worley.
Got judo thrown by Dong Kim.
But you know what I'm saying? Dong Kim's 22-4, and he got 30-25 by Colby. Now, of course, RDA is the better striker here. RDA is way more experienced, been in way more higher caliber fights than Colby. Even though I think Colby's resume at 170 is still solid. I mean, Barberena's got solid wins. Barberena beat Worley, you know what I'm saying? Max Griffin, we see what he's doing now. Dong Kim's 22-4, and Damian Maia. I think... Dos Anjos, I actually predicted that he would beat Robbie in that fight. Now, I know Robbie's a legend, but, Robbie was coming off their, 5-round war after 5-round war after 5-round war, where I feel like Damian Maia was just coming off of, one little bad fight against Tyron. I know he was coming back too soon, but no one's bloodied him up in that fashion before. But now I think the wrestling, the offensive wrestling will be here. I think he will avoid the submission. If he doesn't get caught... I think, like you said, I think RDA has to finish this fight to win. I think Colby, if he makes it the distance, he wins. So I got Colby by decision. Am I confident that he can leave his neck out of the subs? No, I can't, because RDA is a third-degree black belt, and I think he's got a jiu-jitsu advantage here. But the size plays a factor, and the cardio plays a factor. And I think the D1 wrestling cardio will outmatch RDA here.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you see RDA off his back, obviously that Tarek fight looks super relaxed, but that's Tarek Safadine. You know what I'm saying? This is Colby. This is a different pressure. This is a different grind. So it's going to be interesting, man.
Disclaimer, I was just kidding about Damian Maia boxing being like a sport. I actually love Damian Maia. So.
because
I do. I love Damian Maia. I love watching him fight. I love his jiu-jitsu. So
because
that was a joke.
When Damian fought Kamaru, he actually landed a couple left hands early because, Kamaru's so used to, manhandling guys, you know what I'm saying? But it was like Kamaru can box. He knocked out Sergio, but, he had to, box Maia for 5 rounds.
Yeah, and
yeah.
Colby had to box him for 3 rounds.
Exactly, so.
Hey, Colby put on a takedown defense clinic against Maia.
That just shows you my boy T Wood really is, I guess, the best welterweight in the world because he boxed Maia.
Man, social media is going to shut down if Colby wins this fight, is all I got to say.
But,
oh, my God.
Then we'll get the big fight that everyone wants to see, Colby versus T Wood. Probably one of the biggest fights in welterweight history. And, we'll get I think this is what T Wood needs. T Wood needs this guy in his career to make him great, so... I like the fight.
Yeah, that's a good point because even though Wonder Boy and Maia are incredible fighters, but no one really gave a shit. Those fights were boring as fuck. The lead up to a fight between Colby and Woodley would be insane.
This is the biggest payday in your career, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Colby is going to sell this fight, and RDA. I think Colby's got a better chance against T Wood than RDA.
I feel you. Main event of the evening. Robert Whittaker, he's minus 220. The comeback on Yoel Romero's plus 180. Now, the first time they fought, it was 48-47 on all 3 cards. Yoel won the first 2 rounds. Rob won the last 3 rounds. Super close fight. Great fight. It's not often you see number 1 versus number 2 in a UFC title fight. It should be that way, but you don't often see it. I mean, the last title fight we saw was, Amanda Nunes versus number 5, right? So now we actually get the legit number 1 and number 2 guy. Super high-level fight. It's a game of inches, man. Anything could happen. Either guy could get caught. Shaq, which way are you leaning, man?
I truly believe that Rob Whittaker is the greatest middleweight of all time, and I think he will defend his belt. I think Yoel Romero is just the number 2, and I just think he's here at the wrong time. I think this is the Rob Whittaker era. Now, of course, in this type of situation, betting-wise, it's dog or pass, but, when you got a guy that's as calm as Rob who, keeps distance and makes sure that he, draws Yoel's energy out, just like he said in his interview just recently. He said Yoel's not built for a marathon, and he's going to take him to a marathon. He's going to make him work. And I think he makes him work. I think Yoel's best bet is to land a punch, of course, just like how he did against Rockhold and just like how he does against all his other opponents. But I just think Rob's just too smart for that. I think he's going to slip the shots in return, and I think he's going to put Yoel away somewhere in that 3rd or 4th round.
Chaz, man, I got so many questions about this fight because obviously, we have a rule. Anytime Yoel Romero is dog money, you should probably take a look because his percentage cashing as the underdog is super fucking high. That being said, Robert Whittaker had to pull out of the Luke Rockhold fight due to a mistreated staph infection. We don't know the extent. I mean, I don't know shit about that kind of thing, if that's super bad or if that could affect him long term, if he's going to come back the same. And this is also a fight where I feel like Yoel has to make more adjustments than Rob does. Rob kind of has to wait it out the first 2 rounds, then take over when Yoel gasses. But Yoel, if he didn't go to his back in that 5th round, he could have ended up winning the fight. So, man, which way are you leaning, and what kind of adjustments do you think both guys need to make?
With Romero being a plus 195, I went ahead and threw some money on him. I had to. I do feel like that Whittaker has the better shot here, the better chance of winning this fight. I think he has the right game plan to beat Yoel, but here's my take on it. I think Yoel has a very, very good chance to win this fight, and here's the reason. I think that, the last fight wasn't in that, they didn't have that long to prepare for that. I think they might have had 5 or 6 weeks where they had longer, this fight to prepare for a 5-round fight. 6 weeks is not a long time. I think Yoel really, in the first couple rounds, depended on his wrestling pretty heavy. And I think what he's going to do coming out in this fight, to keep himself from gassing so hard, I think what he should do is depend on his striking a little more and then use those takedowns to win the rounds, possibly at the end of the round. Maybe even try for 2 in the first round or 2 in the second round, but really look for those takedowns at the end of the round when it's a close striking battle, a close striking round. Get a takedown at the end, seal the round, win the round, and still keep yourself kind of fresh. Don't look for those punches and those takedowns the entire round. That's kind of how he gassed himself out in the first fight. So I feel like that he has more room to make improvements in his game plan for this fight. There are a lot of question marks with Whittaker, considering he had an injury, he came back, he had the staph, he came back and trained again. I don't know where he's at. I don't know. He in the past has been a cardio machine. He in the past has been a great striker, and he's got really good get-ups off the ground. I feel like if Yoel can adjust and hold him down for periods of time to where he can rest, Yoel has great takedowns, but he has a little bit of an issue with keeping people down. Now, I feel like if he worked on that in his camp, relies on his striking a little bit, gets the takedowns, and when he gets the takedowns, he holds him down for a minute or so in order to catch his breath, I think Yoel can stay fresh and really win this fight. I think he's the better athlete. I think he's the more explosive athlete. And I'm counting on him to cash for dog money. Now, Whittaker, this is just such a hard one to take because Whittaker's so game, but since I put money on Yoel, I got to go with Yoel, baby.
Look, anytime Yoel's a dog, like we said, it's always it's never a bad bet to take Yoel at dog money. The hit rate is over 90%, so, it just is what it is. And, man, I could totally see Yoel coming out here winning and setting up that trilogy because, these are, like I said earlier, the number 1 and number 2 guys. I could see these 2 fight every single weekend, and I'd be happy just because it's that high level of a fight. Yeah. And, Yoel has to make some more adjustments than Rob does. But Yoel's the kind of guy that's able to do that kind of thing. I kind of noticed in the Rockhold fight, he wasn't shooting as many takedowns. He kind of tried to keep it standing a little bit more. He was super fresh in that 3rd round. And I know Yoel gets criticized for his cardio a lot, but, man, he has got the most 3rd-round finishes in UFC history. He's known for putting dudes away in that 3rd round, and he kind of lulls guys into this false sense of security. Then he explodes out of nowhere. I love how he fakes those level changes, goes up high, and, man, his flying knees come out of nowhere. He's a freak athlete, but Robert Whittaker, he's absolutely unbelievable too, and he's only about, 28 years old? He's 27. He's just a kid, and he's getting better every single time. I'm not kidding when I say that he's got better takedown defense than Jose Aldo. I think that Robert Whittaker might literally have, for someone that's not a wrestler, I think that Robert Whittaker might have the best takedown defense in the entire UFC for a striker. It's absolutely incredible. And but man, I'm just questioning: is he going to come back? Is he going to be the same guy? Is he going to be a better guy? Is he going to be a diminished guy because of that staph infection? Are we putting too much stock into that? I really don't know. I'm not a doctor. I have no idea what the long-term effects of that are. I just know that the line is a lot wider than it was the first time. The first time it was a pick'em, and it kind of played out like a pick'em. I mean, it was 48-47 on all three cards. It's 3-2. So now when you see the line this wide, minus 220 plus 180, I'm kind of leaning a little bit more towards the dog here. I think that Yoel Romero does make the adjustment. I think he does come out here, puts Robert Whittaker away, sets up the trilogy, and it's going to be one of the best middleweight rivalries. Yeah, go to Australia. One of the best middleweight rivalries in the history of the sport, man. So I cannot wait to see what goes down. But it also wouldn't surprise me because Robert Whittaker has been making these comments about how this is going to be the fight that shows Yoel Romero's age. And I wouldn't be surprised. Officially Yoel's, 40, 41, but between you and me, you know how those Cuban visas work, and he's more like 50 or 51. You know what I'm saying? So, it's one of those things where the age could finally come out in this spot. I mean, we're talking about a 27-year-old versus an alleged 41-year-old. 48, you know what I'm saying? So it's eventually Yoel is going to finally, I don't want to say fall off that cliff, but he's going to slow down at some point. I just don't know if this is going to be the spot. At these odds, I have to go with Yoel, though. So I am going to pick him, and it sets up the trilogy.
I agree, and also I do agree with one other thing. I don't know if Robert Whittaker necessarily has the best takedown defense that I've seen. He has great takedown defense, but he definitely has one of the best get-ups that I've ever seen in the game. I mean, he is just freaking impossible to hold down, it seems like. Anytime anybody gets him down to the ground, he pops right back up, and that's very commendable. For a striker, I mean, he's working on the right things, so he's a smart athlete. If he's been able to stay in the gym for long periods of time, he probably takes it. But I just feel like that his training maybe has been a little bit spotty because of the injuries and because of the staff and this and that, and that's kind of what I'm banking on. And, Yoel is so explosive that he could end it, with something big at any moment. So, yeah, it's going to be an exciting one. I can't wait.
I think those are great points because something that you mentioned earlier on in your breakdown is that Yoel isn't really known for holding people down, and Robert's got an incredible get-up game, so Yoel has to make that adjustment to know, like, look, man, this guy springs up like a cat. I need to pace myself better in this spot. And he was having a lot of success standing, too, in the first fight, in the first two rounds. I mean, you saw what he did to Whittaker's knee that first round. It's just he kind of did what my boy Mirsad did in the Elkins fight a little bit. He shot for too many unnecessary takedowns and kind of gassed himself out a little bit. But if he makes an adjustment, which I know an Olympic caliber athlete like Yoel can do, he can come out and win this fight. But Whittaker can also win as well. That's how good of a fight this truly is. So cannot wait to...
you have to think that his camp has really worked on him holding him down because, like you said, being an Olympic caliber athlete, his camp has got to know that he has to make those adjustments. And me being somebody who's not as athletic as a lot of guys that I've wrestled throughout my life and a lot of guys that I train with, man, I hope that they just told him, if you take him down, like elevate or shelf one of his legs to keep him from popping right back up instantly. You know what I mean? That's the way to do it. You got to keep his head lower than his legs. You get his legs up above his head, guy can't pop right back up like that. You know what I mean? I hope that's what he does. I think it's a really simple adjustment for a wrestler to make, and I think he's going to make it. So, anyway, sorry, I'm excited about the fight, so I keep throwing input in there where it's probably not necessary. But
no, I mean, it's such a great fight. I mean, I keep repeating myself, but it's number one versus number two. You don't often see that. So, I'd love to see these guys fight every single weekend. But, Chaz, before we let you go, man, we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So, Shaq, what is the fight to watch for UFC 225?
My fight to watch is going to be Curtis Blaydes versus Overeem, man. I think Curtis has the chance to be a big star at heavyweight if he can get this win under his belt. And I think if he wins this fight, he'll be right in the mix with Volkov and, those other guys at heavyweight. And I think they need to start promoting my boy Curtis if he wins this fight.
Yeah, no, Curtis Blaydes versus Overeem is definitely one of the fights to watch, and I think they have it as the main event of the prelims for a reason. It came down to that fight and Holly Holm. We know Holly Holm's going to put everyone to sleep. They're not going to be inclined to buy the pay-per-view. So let's put the heavyweight fight as the main event of the prelims, get everyone invested, get them to buy the pay-per-view. So, Chaz Skelly, man, what is the fight to watch for UFC 225?
The fight that I think is going to be a great fight to watch is a fight that we didn't even talk about. I think the Ige fight is going to be a fight to watch, and the reason I think so is because I'm drawing a blank here on the name of the guy he's fighting. I don't.
Mike Santiago.
Yes. I'm sorry. I watched all the film on it. I just drew a blank. Santiago has a great scramble game, and I think he's a more slick, a better striker. But Ige is a grinder, a wrestling that he throws heavy hands himself. I think the Ige is the guy this is going to be the fight to watch. I think the reason is because it's going to be packed full of scrambles. I think these guys are going to be going at it the whole time. I don't think Ige is going to just be able to hold him down like he wants to. I think that it's going to be a scramble fest, and I think it's going to be a super fun fight to watch. So for me, that's the fight to watch, the fighter to watch. Even though I can't stand the guy, Colby Covington has put himself in a position to where he is a must-watch at this point, considering how much everybody hates him and how much he talks. He has to be the fighter to watch on the card. It pains me to say it, but it's true. So there it is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, those are some very good picks. For me, the fight to watch is going to be Charles do Bronx Oliveira versus Clay Guida because, look, I've never seen a boring Charles do Bronx fight. I mean, we know the deal when we were saying our breakdown. With Charles Oliveira, it's the same story every time. It's sub or bust. He's either going to tap out Clay Guida or he's going to almost tap out Clay Guida and quit, which he is known for. So I think that there's going to be some serious scrambles in that fight. I think that someone's going to get finished in that fight. I think if it goes to 3-round distance, it's going to be a serious fight. I cannot wait for that one. Charles do Bronx versus Clay Guida is my fight to watch. Now, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for UFC 225?
My fighter to watch is going to be Mirsad Bektic, man. I think, he's got one of the highest ceilings at 145, and I think if he gets this win over Lamas, that's a legend under his belt, and he moves on to bigger and better things at 145.
Yeah, definitely someone to look out for, especially ever since he made that move to TriStar. I want to see the kind of improvements that a kid like that will make. For me, the fighter to watch is Yoel Romero, because like we were talking about in our breakdown, man, and we went on forever about it, what kind of adjustments is this guy going to make coming in here against a world beater, against someone who's never lost at middleweight, against the reigning defending champ, Robert Whittaker? And it's going to really let us know where both guys stand. If Yoel wins, it sets up the trilogy. Yoel Romero is my fighter to watch. Chaz, thank you so much for joining us, man. The fans can follow you at Chaz Skelly. Chaz, any message for them, and let us know when you're coming back, man.
Yeah, I hope to be back, at the end of summer. I mean, I've talked to Sean Shelby. I told him, August, September would be great for me. So, no, guys, just follow me, Twitter, Instagram. I'm always trying to throw stupid shit out there, so give me a follow, and I'll chat it up with you on Twitter if you want.
Awesome, Chaz. Thanks again for the time, man, and have a great day.
Thank you guys so much. I always enjoy being on.
Yes, sir. We'll talk soon.
All right. Later.
Well, Shaq, now we got to hit up Kyle Marley for the Big Marley Minute. And joining us now on the Big Marley Minute is Big Marley himself. Kyle, how's it going?
Hey, good, man. I'm real pumped for this card. A lot of big money to be won, and I can't wait to win it.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of big money to be won, I heard DraftKings flew out my boy Big Marley to the Reds game recently. How was that?
Yeah, it was cool. They hooked us up with a suite. There were a couple Bengals players there. We had a lot of free food, a lot of free beer. My type of party. So, yeah, it was fun. I'll always take those anytime they offer them.
Man, isn't it nice when that hard work pays off?
Yeah, for sure, no doubt. A sports book never takes me to places like this, so that's why I love DraftKings.
Well, maybe if you start losing, they will.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean? Because they can't be celebrating guys that beat them.
Yeah, I mean, especially in Vegas, then they would offer it, but not here in Indiana. No sports books ever offered me anything.
Yeah. Just wait till now that they're about to legalize it everywhere. Just be on the lookout. You know what I'm saying? But Kyle, look, man, this main event between Robert Whittaker and Yoel Romero, it's absolutely incredible. The first time around, it was a pick'em. This time, Robert's over 2-1 favorite. So which way you leaning?
So this one, I like Whittaker. He's my pick to win. But I think the better play on DraftKings is Romero. Whittaker's 9,100. So for him to pay that off, he's going to need a knockout. A decision with just striking only, it's not going to get there. And in their first fight, he only scored 70 points. So if that happens again, I don't want 70 points for 9,100. So I'm going to be a little light on him. I can see him getting the knockout, so I'm not going to fade him. But I'm going to actually have more exposure to Romero because he's only 7,100, and you have to have the dogs. And he's so cheap that it just makes it so easy to build your lineups if you put him in there. So I like him quite a bit, but he is going to be chalky. I think he's going to be maybe even the chalkiest guy on the card, for sure the most chalky underdog. But I'm probably going to be right along with the field. I'm going to have more Romero than I'm going to have Whittaker, but the problem is I'm picking Whittaker to win. So I'm definitely not going to be going all in. I'm going to have a little bit of both these guys. But Romero, if I was making one lineup, Romero would be in it.
So when we talk about DraftKings, we like our finishers and our wrestlers. And this co-main event matchup between Colby Covington and Rafael Dos Anjos, we got a finisher in Rafael Dos Anjos versus a wrestler in Colby Covington. So the winner of this fight is going to score you a lot of points. Now, I know for a fact that my boy Colby, when he starts adding up those takedowns, he can go out there and win you a tournament. But if he dives into a guillotine like he did against Worley, Rafael is probably going to win you that tournament. So which way are you leaning? And are you going to make lineups with both guys?
Yeah, I'll have a couple with both guys, but I'm going to have more Colby. I just think the takedowns are really what I want. I think he'll be able to get them. I'm worried about him getting them for 5 rounds, though. I could see RDA maybe having the better gas tank. I'm nervous. I'm definitely not going to be going all in on Colby or anything. I just think he has a better path to victory and a better path to DraftKings points with the takedowns. So I'm going to have more of him, and we have line value now. He's cheaper on DraftKings, but he's the favorite on the betting line, so I always like that as well. So, again, if I was making one lineup, I'd probably have Colby on it. This is a solid stack and cash fight if you want to. But I'm not going to be a one-lineup guy. I'll have at least like 20, so I'll have a couple RDAs as well. But, yeah, Colby's my pick here, and I think he'll get it done by wrestling.
So from a DraftKings perspective, in your opinion, is this Holm versus Megan Anderson fight, is it a dog or pass situation? The reason I ask is because I would assume that Holly Holm doesn't often pay off her price tags, unless she's fighting Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely a dog or pass. Holm will need a knockout to pay off her value, her price tag, that's for sure. She just does not strike at a high enough pace. And then her inside distance line is plus 500, so she's really not likely to get that knockout. I just can't. I'm probably going to be a full fade on Holm. I might ride her up as my fade of the week. I'm not interested in that. She's going to have to get that knockdown. She's not going to go for any takedowns. She's going to dance around the cage a lot, and none of that scores points. And I also think Megan Anderson's going to be pushing her against the cage and try and make it a little dirtier of a fight, maybe try to get it to the ground. So it's definitely dog or pass or fade. But yeah, it's Megan or fade for me.
So Tai Tuivasa is taking on Andrei Arlovski, and the last 3 guys that fought Arlovski, they all fanboyed out for him. I don't think Tai Tuivasa is that kind of guy. I actually like him as one of the favorites to go in my DraftKings lineup. I think he gets it done via knockout. What's your opinion?
Yeah, Tuivasa is a savage. His inside distance line is minus 155, so that right there I love. He can be played in. I think he's a better GPP player just because these are heavyweights, and he technically has a floor of 0 if he gets knocked out early. So I'm going to have a couple Arlovskis as well. But yeah, I like Ty quite a bit here, and I think he does get it done by knockout. So I'll have quite a few GPP lineups with him. He's one of my favorite guys on the card.
So the first fight of the main card, it's actually an amateur fight between CM Punk and Mike Jackson. It's kind of interesting. You think a lot of people are going to have either guy in their lineups? You think people are going to be fading this fight? Like, what do you think the ownership's going to be on either guy?
I have no idea. I'm usually pretty good at judging ownership, but I have no idea on this fight. I'm thinking Mike Jackson will probably be pretty low owned, maybe 10 to 15% owned. But the name CM Punk and being a dog, it'll gain him some ownership. So I just can't really judge how popular is he, how many people are going to tune into this and play DraftKings just because he's on it. I have no idea. I don't watch that wrestling shit at all, so I don't really know what they're thinking. So I don't know. I think if I was going to have one of these guys, it's going to be a CM Punk, just because I think he's going to try and get it to the ground, maybe get a rear naked choke. It's in Chicago. The UFC wants him to win. So I'll just take those and save the money, take me some CM Punk, because if Jackson, he's going to need to get a knockout, which he definitely could. CM Punk is not very good. But this fight just sucks so much. I really hate that I even have to put these guys in my lineup, but it is an amateur fight, and that's where a lot of the mistakes are made. That's what you want to target against, are the mistakes. So I'm going to end up having both these guys on lineups as much as it sucks.
Yeah, I don't watch that fake wrestling shit either. I'm not 12 years old anymore, you know what I'm saying, Kyle? But look, this heavyweight matchup between Alistair Overeem and Curtis Blaydes, you got a guy on the come-up in Blaydes. You don't often see heavyweights in their 20s. He's still in his 20s. He's taking on Overeem, who, I want to talk about that Ngannou KO, but it seems like every time Overeem gets knocked the fuck out, he seems to come back and win fights, but Curtis is on the come-up. Who you got?
I like Blaydes in this one. I just think if he can use his wrestling, he's got a pretty solid ceiling here, and he can get a knockout as well. But I'm nervous because he could get knocked out in the first round. Overeem's still a scary dude. He just can't take a punch like he used to. So this is going to be another one where I'm taking both sides. Like if this is my last pick or something, I do want this in the majority of my lineups, I think. So this could be one of those if I have money to spend. I'm just going to go ahead and put Blaydes in there. But if I have a lot of money on the table, then and I need a dog, or I mean, if I need a dog, I'm just going to throw Overeem because he could get you 100 points at 7,700. So I'm going to have a couple lineups, but Blaydes is the pick, and I think he could get over 100 points at just 8,500. If that happens, you're almost going to need him to be on your team. But this is going to be a good one. These big boys, you never really know what's going to happen, but I think it'll score high either way.
So I was kind of surprised to see Claudia Gadelha as big of a favorite as she is. I'm not surprised she's the favorite. She's the rightful favorite. Don't get me wrong. She's the way more physical fighter. I was just not expecting minus 600 odds. So with that being said, do you see any value in Carla? The reason I ask is because on her best day, she is able to score some takedowns.
I think the value on Carla would be cash games. Make her your cash game punt. Take the loss there with the cheapest fighter on the card. And then you could pay up for 5 other more expensive people. So I like her more in cash games than I like her in GPPs. But on the other end, I probably like Gadelha more in GPPs because not a lot of people are going to be targeting her with Tuivasa cheaper. They're going to just go ahead and save that $200, put Tuivasa in their lineup, hope to get the knockout, and that's going to take away from Claudia's ownership. So for that reason alone, I like her in GPPs. I think if I was making a cash lineup with one of these two, though, it would be Esparza. And just to hope that she would get 3 rounds worth of points, really. But I don't see her winning.
So before I let you go, man, there's these 2 matchups that, I think there's going to be a finish in at least one of them, and I'm talking about Chris De La Roca versus Rashad Coulter and Dan Ige versus Mike Santiago. Do you have an opinion on either of those 2?
Man, the Santiago-Ige fight is interesting. I really am having a hard time getting a lean on that fight, so it's kind of making me want to fade it in my rough draft builds just because I don't know who I like to win. But I think if you do have a pretty good lean on it, it could be a good fight to use just because there could be a lot of stand-up and takedowns in this, and they're going to mix in just the whole MMA aspect of it. So I still got to do some more film on this. Hopefully I can see something I haven't seen yet and put someone in my lineup. But who's the other one you asked about?
De La Roca and Coulter.
Oh, yeah, that one. Someone's going to go down in that one, right?
Exactly.
That's going to be a first-round knockout. It's another one like Punk and Jackson where it sucks putting either one of these guys in your lineup, but you almost have to because I could see the winning lineup having both those fights in it. So, yeah, as much as it hurts to do it, whatever fits, just throw them in your lineup was what I think. That's more of the last pick in my lineup kind of thing. My pick, though, is Coulter. The size, though, will be on De La Rocha's advantage, so that scares me. I'll have both and just hope that it is a one-punch knockout and we don't have to see these guys fight for 3 rounds because that will be miserable.
Well, Kyle, that is why you are the DraftKings guy for half the battle. Always appreciate the hard-hitting analysis, my man. I know the fans do too. They can follow you at Big Marley 3. Kyle, any message for them?
Good luck. Chase those big prizes this week. We got a new qualifier, so I'll be chasing that one.
Yes, sir. Kyle, we'll speak in 2 weeks.
All right, man. Sounds good. Good luck this weekend.
Likewise, man. Have a good one. Once again, Kyle Marley killing it with the DraftKings advice. DraftKings actually flew him out to Cincinnati for the Reds game, giving him the treatment, giving him the free merch, doing the whole bit. So shout out to my boy Marley. Well, Shaq, it's going down this Saturday, UFC 225. Max Bet season continues. As you know, undefeated on Max Bets, consensus Max Bets in 2018. The last 3 events, we've had 4 Max Bets in a row come through in cash, and now we're trying to make it the 5th in a row.
Yeah, and that continues this weekend. We got Max Bet going down there in the great city of Chicago, and it's a great card. And when we say Max Bet season, it's time to get the money. It's time to stop hesitating and stop letting this easy money slide past your face. We're the ones that are the best at recognizing the easy mismatch fights, and that's what we're doing this weekend. And I hope everyone emails us at bestfightpicks@gmail.com and hops on board because it's time to stop playing games. It's time to look yourself in the mirror and become a winner.
Yeah, and we're building bankrolls one bet at a time. Colby wants to make the welterweight division great again. We want to make your bankroll great again. So go to bestfightpicks.com and sign up today because long term, we always get the job done.
But the uproar if Colby Covington wins this fight, I mean, bro, that would be some legendary shit if he actually, talks all this shit and actually gets the belt.
Oh, man, he said he's going to take that belt to the Oval Office. My boy Colby's hilarious.
Bro, he gets more fucking crazier and crazier. So, man, hopefully the charade can keep going.
Well, after this max bet cashes in Chicago, we'll be able to buy some stuffed crust pizza with our deep dish pizza. That's the Chicago style with our winnings, and just take care of biz. So make sure you follow me on Twitter at Best Fight Picks. Follow Shaq at MMA Genius 05. Follow our Instagram at Best Fight Picks Official. Subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Stitcher. Hook up those 5-star reviews on iTunes. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.